And good morning to you, St. Lucia. As always, thank you so much for being with us, coming to you live from the studios of the National Television Network, the Government Information Service. I'm Lisa Joseph on this Tuesday alongside Homer DeMark, and the month of February is moving quite along. It is an important month for us here in St. Lucia. It is the month in which we celebrate, not just observe, we are celebrating ourselves as a people, Homer, and it is the 43rd, this year is the 43rd anniversary of St. Lucia's independence. What an anniversary celebration it's going to be. We know COVID-19 permitting, but we're celebrating nonetheless.
That is right. Good morning, Lisa, and good morning to you viewers as well. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you are viewing on Channel 122, our Facebook or Instagram pages, our Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube pages. We always appreciate you joining us here this morning. Yes, the month of February, Independence activities launched yesterday, or celebrations rather, launched yesterday, and we are in for quite a celebration indeed, Lisa. You know for sure that there's some stable activities that are going to remain this year. The Independence Gospel Concert being one of them, as well as the military parade. We weren't able to really to have that due to COVID-19, but we should see that one returning this year. So that's one of the activities. And there's an activity called Live Art, which will encompass quite a bit of St. Lucian talent as well. So yes, we are in for quite a bit for Independence.
We're looking forward to that. We'll be sharing the logo and the jingle with you just a little later on. But as I said, COVID-19 permitting, and really and truly we have adapted our lives in order for us to be able to mitigate and the pandemic, to prevent ourselves from being infected. So COVID-19, let's get up to speed with what the latest numbers are.
Yes, I can do that for you. Thank you for that reminder, because I think I needed it this morning. But like Lisa said,
we just want to forget.
I know.
Yeah.
Like Lisa said, the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs, they always keep us informed and up to date as to our current situation. Yesterday, the 7th of February, the Ministry of Health confirmed a total of 44 new cases of COVID-19. These samples were processed on Sunday, February 6th, from a total of 180 samples, of which 150 were from the Israel Long or processed at the Israel Long Laboratory, and 30 samples were processed at Laboratory Services and Consultations Limited. These samples were collected from the 4th to the 6th of February 2022, and this number of positive cases makes up 24.44% of all the samples processed on that date. Recovery was also received, or confirmation rather, was also received a recovery of 412 individuals diagnosed with COVID-19, bringing the number of active cases in country to date to 2,449. Currently, there are 64 positive cases of COVID-19 admitted at the respiratory hospital, and of them, one is in critical care. Vaccination, of course, continues today at the Grosley Human Resource Center. If you're looking to be vaccinated, the Grosley Human Resource Center is one of the places that you visit. The VA4RC Parish Hall, as well as Larry Shoes Constituency Council, and People's Discount on Victoria Street, and that is from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. for all the vaccination sites.
All right. Now, Homer, in as much as vaccination, and we've been pushing that message from the time the vaccines were on market, equally important in that equation there is testing. So whether you're vaccinated or you're unvaccinated, testing is exceedingly important. It is how you know in your status, yes?
Very true.
And so for the longest time, we've had the labs, the Ezra's Long Lab, and then there was facilitation for private labs to get involved in the testing process as well. We've heard about the gold standard being the PCR test, and then the antigen tests are also on market. And so now the authorities have have now updated our testing protocol, and it is now allowing for health service providers to import approved. I want to go now to Dr. Delphina Venner on that.
As of February 6, 2022, St. Lucia has diagnosed a total of 21,117 COVID-19 active cases and 341 COVID-19 deaths. We are in the third year of managing COVID-19 with our fifth wave. As we move from the various phases of the COVID-19 outbreak in country, we continuously review the various protocols. The quarantine and isolation protocol was recently updated, and the testing protocol is now updated effective February 5th, 2022, in an effort to make testing more accessible. The polymerase chain reaction PCR test and rapid or antigen test are both approved tests for use in country. PCR tests are approved for diagnostic purposes and the antigen test for screening and surveillance. The Ezra Long Laboratory of the OKEU Hospital, the Forensic Laboratory, and Laboratory Services and Consultations Limited are authorized to perform PCR testing. Pharmacies, pharmacy distributors, laboratories, and health service providers may import the following approved antigen tests. Persons are encouraged to visit a respiratory clinic or laboratory to get tested for COVID-19 by a health professional.
So there from the Ministry of Health. So pharmacy provide a lot of people have been interested in home living overseas or international news and so forth, and we hear about people being able to test themselves at home. And I think too that people who are traveling quite often, they too would want to be able to do the test, provide, but I'm not terribly certain how many destinations, how many countries really accept the sort of home kit test. That's something we probably need to get some clarification on. But certainly it works, because if you wake up in the morning and you're feeling as if something is just not right with the body and you want to get an antigen test done, then you know that you can more easily access that test. That being said, Homer, today, Tuesday, is now day 2 of school, the resumption of face-to-face in classroom instruction, if you will, for our students island-wide. And we were still seeing the high infection numbers on a daily basis, but we've now seen that decline considerably. There's been quite a decline in that. But Dr. Sharon Belma-George, who's our chief medical officer, she has given a little advice, as she always does, on ensuring a safe and sustainable school environment. And this comes against the backdrop too, Homer, of confirmation of 5 new Dr. Sharon Belma-George, the advice on sustaining the safe school environment.
As of February 6, 2022, St. Lucia has diagnosed a total of 21,691 cases in country, with 2,817 active cases presently. The daily infection rate for the last 7 days is 59.6 per 100,000 population per day, which represents a 39% reduction from last week, with a 44% average testing positivity rate and a transmission rate of 1.9. We have noted a total of 341 COVID-19 deaths. We have 64 positive cases admitted at the respiratory hospital, 1 case is critically ill, and 4 are severely ill. Since the commencement of the 5th wave on December 16, 2021, 8,562 cases have been diagnosed, with an average of 165 cases per day. Women account for 59% of the cases, and 43 COVID-19 deaths have been recorded, 65% of which is male. The majority of the deaths are COVID-19 related deaths due to other associated chronic health conditions. Tourists account for 3.6% of the cases diagnosed in the past 7 days, but 4.7% of the total cases during the 5th wave. Although the cases diagnosed are noted island-wide, the main areas affected are Castries, Gros-Islet, Vieux Fort, and Babonneau. We have received notification from the Caribbean Public Health Agency of 5 new cases of the Omicron variant in country. They are all nationals, 3 female, 2 male, with ages ranging from 26 to 51 years. We continue sending samples for gene sequencing, but we can deduce that Omicron is the dominant variant in country at this time. We continue to note reductions in most of the public health indicators and the downward trend in the epidemiological curve. The cases of COVID-19 noted on a daily basis still has the capacity to cause an increase in hospitalizations, deaths, and affect the productivity in the workplace. We appeal to all organizations, public and private sector, to ensure the strengthening of all of the public health protocols. As we resume face-to-face learning at our schools, we continue to ask all stakeholders to contribute in ensuring a safe environment for the sustainable academic instruction. Bus drivers are reminded to ensure that all of the recommended measures are implemented. The following are the main reminders to parents and the school administration in relation to school reopening this week. Parents are to cooperate and work closely with the class teacher on various safety measures put in place to keep your child safe. Children who develop respiratory symptoms or test positive should not be sent to school. Ensure children are provided with clean face masks daily for school and when in public places. Ensure regular cleaning of surfaces and sanitation of all schools and environments. Ensure your child remains in quarantine or isolation if they were a direct contact of a case or a member of your household is positive. Limit social activities at schools and the socialization after school in groups. Teachers and school administrators are reminded to ensure that masks are used in the staff rooms and limit staff socialization. Encourage vaccination of children 12 to 17 years old, teachers, and school support staff. The Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and Johnson & Johnson vaccines are available at the various wellness centers and advertised vaccination sites. These vaccines have been proven to be safe and effective in protecting persons in developing COVID-19, its severe forms, complications, hospitalizations, and death. The booster vaccine is also available for persons who have been fully vaccinated for over 6 months. Everyone who has not been vaccinated is urged to get vaccinated urgently. The Ministry of Health and Wellness will continue providing updates to the public as new information becomes available.
George, advice on being able to sustain a safe school environment as our students island-wide are back in the classroom. Herman, I think the students are happy about being able to go back to school.
I think so too, and I think the parents are getting some relief too, because I think it's kind of strenuous on the parents, not only the homeschooling and being able to facilitate that, but if you're a working parent or both parents are working, it's kind of difficult to ensure that you're supervising the child and giving them the aid that they need while they're at home. So it's definitely it definitely has its benefits that the children are back at school. And one of the things I think is important to reiterate is the important role that parents play in ensuring that the school environment remains one that is safe and operational. Just by ensuring that you monitor your child and your child's symptoms. If you see that your child has symptoms, at home, get the child tested and liaise with the teachers and schools and ensure that communication line open.
And then there is a whole protocol within which schools are in as well. If there is a suspected case, with a student, things that must be done. The relevant authorities come through and be able now to have that child notify the parents and be able to take that child into some form of care. So once we can all play in home, because that's what it takes for all of us to play our individual parts and make up as we enter into a bit of our home stretch. We're talking about the independence at the top of the show. And it's a time of year I always look forward to, because I remember quite fondly my days at school.
I love those stories.
And independence. You would be there quite eager because you want to be chosen as one of the students who would go off for the school rally. Because, most students, but not me at all, never. Most students just loved being able to be chosen so that they can have days off from class. Yeah.
Not
so
you at all.
Right, no, never me. So you can be off from class and you can go because there'll be rehearsals and all of the performance. As we would say in school, practice. so it was always a time really allowed for students and young people to feel like they were part of the society, that you had, especially for the schools or through the National Youth Council, the Student Council, being able to address not just the students, but you addressing the leaders of the country and being able to articulate your point of view and so forth. It has always been something I believe that young people look forward to and they cherish. But COVID-19 has come along and squashed that. But we are still, as you were saying at the top of the show, Homer, we're able to do quite a bit, although we're doing it virtually mostly. But before we continue the convo, let's just have a look again at what the logo and the jingle is all about. Roger,
a wide range of resources used in everyday life. The best we have to give. We feel so proud to be St. Lucia. In paradise we live, and we all have to work together to serve the land we love. Wherever you may roam in this world, it's home you're thinking of. Land of people and the
the independence jingle and
Yes, Lisa. So the jingle theme for this year, you probably heard a little over some celebrate our people. That one was produced, the jingle was produced by Irvin East Lockta, and the beautiful voice there, I believe, is Doriel, as well as the logo designed by Raul Joseph. Raul has been involved in designing logos for Independence for the past few years, I believe. He is the owner of Doodle Interactive, and that is one of the main things that they do in terms of graphic design and branding for businesses. And so it's quite nice to see, our people getting involved in the process for independence as well. I like the jingle. I think it's catchy.
And I think so. It's catchy. There's also Toriel has a sort of voice as well, that's her tone, and so I am just now very inspired to get involved and enjoy all of the activities, a few panel discussions that will be taking place. I did hear the co-chair for the Independence Committee say that the panel discussions are really to give everyone an opportunity to have a voice in the direction in which the country is developing, and constructive criticism if there needs to be that, patting on the back. We can acknowledge the things that we are well and things that we need some improvement. And what it is, forward to that, and definitely the best of the best. So being able to showcase the talent and so forth, it's always a grand time for independence.
That is very, very true. And one of the points that you made, and I think we also heard it from the Minister for Tourism, Honorable Dr. Ernest Delaire, is the importance of people getting involved. And that is one of the things that they want to ensure this year happens. So they're calling on St. Lucians here as well as the diaspora to get involved. And COVID-19 has really pushed us to ensuring that we have things in the virtual space as well. So everybody can get involved. And a lot of the activities that we're going to have this year, of course, there are going to be limitations when it comes to attendance, but you could always follow on Facebook, on Instagram. Of course, we are going to be bringing you the information on the National Television Network, Government of St. Lucia Facebook pages, YouTube channels, and you could also check out 758 Independence on Facebook and Instagram as well for updates for the calendar, which will be posted very soon, so you can have like a huge view of all the activities and select the ones that you're looking forward to the most. One of the things I always look forward to is National Colors Day for Independence, and not necessarily for me to dress up, but I like to see everybody
everybody's take on what it's going to be.
Always look forward to it.
Yeah, so I don't know, you stylizing this year? What you're thinking of doing something special?
No, I'm not. I'm just
because I'm just a wear the color girl.
Yeah, really. I'm the wear the color girl too.
Nothing, extravagant.
I'm wearing the color, but I like to see other people get creative about it. Yeah. For me, the 4 colors all at once is a little much for me, but. So maybe accessories with 3 of the colors, and then I have 1 solid color, which is what I usually try to do, or I have like a brooch or corsage with all the colors, and then I choose 1 color, whether it's the cerulean blue or the black.
Very good. That's the designer Homer DeMarc speaking there. I'm looking forward. I had to take the job, but I'm also looking forward to the independence celebrations from Dubai.
Yes, a big part of it this year.
Absolutely looking forward to this, to see how not just ourselves being showcased there, but the reception that we'll be getting from our now friends in Dubai, as we've been at the expo for 6 months now. The expo has been ongoing, and St. Lucia has been showcasing there. So it's going to culminate with our grand independence celebration. I do believe that we're having a musical sort of contingent.
Yes, musical. I know that poetry as well going to be featured. So a lot of our artisans, well, not a lot, but a selected contingent of our artisans will be up there, and they will be putting on quite a spectacle for persons in Dubai, and to be able to experience St. Lucia's independence. So yeah, it's definitely something to look forward to.
I know just by following the expo, there's been quite an interest in St. Lucia already, and that is just going to be the icing on that cake. All right, so let's move along now, and we're talking about being able to preserve and having, environments, sustainable environments and so forth. The wetlands, completely important for us to be able to have a good functioning ecosystem. The 2nd of February each year is observed as World Wetlands Day, and it is to mark the date of the adoption of the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands. The Ministry of Agriculture has joined the rest of the world in from the Ministry of Agriculture.
A wide range of resources used in everyday life, such as charcoal, honey, medicinal plants, and fish, are derived from the sustainable utilization of our wetlands. In commemoration of World Wetlands Day, the Department of Forestry, in collaboration with the Southeast Coast Project, the Department of Fisheries, and the St. Lucia National Trust, a tree planting at the Makote Mangrove in efforts to regenerate the mangrove forest ecosystems in areas where the species previously existed. Chief Forest Officer Alwyn Donnelly notes that wetlands are an integral part of the natural environment of St. Lucia and have significant value for biodiversity and coastal protection. He also stressed on the importance of ensuring that wetlands remain protected and preserved.
I would take today to observe the importance and the value, of wetlands, not only to us, but, the intrinsic about activities, our actions call us to do a lot more to protect and preserve our remaining wetlands.
A series of waterbird consensuses were also conducted to determine the waterbird population's levels and the trends in numbers and distribution. National Project Coordinator for the Jeff Southeast Coast Project, John Calixt, explains that the activity is fitting with the mandate of the organization to rehabilitate degraded areas and preserve as well as conserve areas in the Southeast Coast.
Wetlands have very significant importance, as was said, as a carbon sink. They're migratory species, bird species that come here every year, and also there's all the biodiversity in the area which needs protection and conservation. So all of these activities fit nicely into our project objectives. So therefore, it was not a problem for us to, accept to be here today to participate in the activities and also to support what's happening here today.
The theme for this year's event was Wetlands Action for People and Nature, which highlights the importance of our actions to ensure conservation and sustainable use of wetlands for humans and planetary health. From the Communications Unit of the Ministry of Agriculture, I am Anicia Antoine reporting.
Thanks, Anicia Antoine, for that. And so while St. Lucia is doing its bit for World Wetlands Day, or in overall ensuring the preservation, conservation of our wetlands, at the OECS level, a lot has been taking place there as well. So we go now to the OECS Commission for recognizing wetlands.
Ang bien important.
Important ecosystem, especially in the island states such as the OECS.
As the OECS, we continue to promote and advocate for environment sustainability, and increasingly we can see, it's even greater importance. One, with the situation of resilience. We know that we face tremendous vulnerability to climate change and other impacts. And right here in this mangrove ecosystem, it is really one of our key tools to fighting this vulnerability.
Mangrove stands or mangals are also important nurseries for fish and other species, many of which are of commercial value. So you'll find that the estuaries or bays where you get mangroves, they serve as nurseries for fish, for crabs, even for lobsters, because the nutrient cycle which is taking place, like the falling leaves that decay in the water, release nutrients which are consumed by smaller organisms, which are eaten by larger organisms, etc., etc.
C'est en place côté poisson. C'est poisson, c'est là yo ka fait petit yo et yo ka lever, et c'est poisson ça c'est pêche noir, c'est en ça yo ka fait la vie yo.
In some mangroves you get fishes like the tapon, what they call the guadikai, that tend to frequent at a certain part of the life cycle. They might live in or near the mangrove and so on.
It's also a cultural service, if we look at it in terms of a cultural function for St. Lucia and some of the Eastern Caribbean countries. Crabs are a source of food for communities, as well as a traditional knowledge and a cultural aspect for us.
The mangroves play a significant role in terms of helping to conserve our shorelines, helping to serve as essentially your last line or first line of defense.
In the OECS, most of our communities are along the coast, and mangroves serve to protect these communities from wave action, especially when we think of hurricanes and storms and strong winds.
Where you get black mangrove, some people say that the black mangrove their flowers are good for bees. So when the bees forage, they will sometimes frequent the black mangrove trees, which produce good pollen, which of course the bees use in honey production.
Aussi, mangla, ça différents monde qui servi, you can faire charbon, you can faire différents bagages, so it's bien important.
You found across the region, and in St. Lucia in particular, where we are right now, that over the years, mangrove swamps have been thinned out, sometimes for charcoal, sometimes to allow for construction and so on, and sometimes mangrove swamps are filled in because they're considered to be breeding grounds for mosquitoes and so on. That is unfortunate because the role that mangroves play in protecting our coastline in terms of helping to guarantee our food resource and so on, it far outweighs any perceived nuisance value that they may have.
Mangroves are excellent carbon sinks. They take in carbon. We know all trees take in carbon and put out or respire oxygen. But mangroves in particular, because they are long-lived, because of those intricate root systems, are able to sequester even more carbon than the average tree.
And they also help to purify the water, the coastal water, because sediment which is in the water settles between the roots, and in that way they also help to create new land, so to speak.
Mangroves also provide this intermittent kind of environment. So we know we have the salt water, which we know is what our oceans and seas are made out of, and normally we'd have freshwater resources as well. Mangroves are the place where those two meet. Mangroves are able to withstand high amounts of salt, but also high amounts of fresh water. Of course, different mangroves are able to take on different salt tolerance. So red mangroves, which is what we predominantly have here, they are able to take on the most salt.
L'année manque comme ça différentes places, l'OECS là, différents pays, avec nous voulons encourager tout le monde pour manager yo bien, protecter yo, parce yo là pour bénéfice nous tous. As we promote greener and bluer economy approaches, this is one of the resources that would be very critical in this arsenal. And as we continue to promote resilience against vulnerability, it also is a national in our fight.
The Biodiversity Support Program in ACP Coastal Environments, which we call Biospace, is a project that is funded by the European Union. We received a grant from the European Union in the amount of 10.7 million euros. The Biospace project will be assisting the OECS member states in looking at activities which range from looking at the value of coastal species, from reef, looking at possibly the harvesting of crabs and regeneration, but essentially helping the countries to effectively manage those coastal and marine resources to ensure not just conservation but sustainability, so that the countries in the region and its peoples could benefit from the livelihoods that we depend on from these resources.
Wetlands Action for People and Nature. A call to take action for wetlands is the focus of this year's campaign. It's an appeal to invest financial, human, and political capital to save the world's wetlands from disappearing and to restore those we have degraded.
More places or more territories, more countries involved in the movement, working together, pulling resources to ensure that you make the internet a safer place. And it's very important, I think, this observance, because the internet has become such a huge part of our lives, and we have a generation coming up. We have a generation of children. All they know is the internet. They did not have to go for encyclopedias. They did not have to experience, what happened before. And I think, Lisa, you and I are privileged in that.
We had both of
we had a balance.
Yeah.
We had both, and so teaching them the importance of using the internet safely, that yes, there are dangers. There are people that may use the internet in malicious ways, and you need to find ways to guard yourself from that. It's a movement that I think parents should be involved in. Decision makers need to be involved in, educators as well, and of course youth leaders who can set the example and be people championing the cause. But yes, today is Safer Internet Day, and of course we want to wish you a very safe Internet Day. Don't go clicking on links that look a little suspicious. Your internet tip for today. Yeah,
because you don't want to have to get onto a link, and next thing you know, it's all sorts of spyware. It's downloaded there on the of who we are and all of our lives right there, and it's quite open to those who have the know-how.
Exactly.
So for people who really know how to get in there and go behind all of those firewalls and you are completely exposed to these individuals, and so we must always try to keep ourselves abreast with how best we can protect and keep ourselves safe on the internet, and as well as the information that you access as well. So,
very true.
And I think that's no truer than what we've experienced with COVID-19. So anyone can post anything on the internet. You can post anything you want, and you can actually garner a following because who is like-minded as you are until you post something on the internet. And with the world, nearly 9 billion people, there must be quite a few thousands who may be thinking just like you. So it's a dangerous place, but it's also a wonderful place where you can form groups with people from across the world. Absolutely. St. Lucia, we recently saw the launch of a campaign for public education campaign for the electronic communication bill. In the main, it really speaks to the access, because that's important, access to broadband, the penetration of that, making sure that there's equity in what's really happening there, cost and so forth. So we'll be hearing a lot more from ECTEL on that regard. And speaking about being able to reach across the world and form support groups and the information that you access and so forth, I just want to end here, Homer, that last Friday, which was the 4th of February, was World Cancer Day. And it's important for us here in St. Lucia because in 2020, the range of more than 1,000, I think 1,200 deaths from cancer. So we want to go across to Funnel Neptune for a bit more on what the Ministry of Health and by extension the government of St. Lucia is doing for cancer.
Health officials, oncologists, cancer organizations, cancer survivors, and other in observing World Cancer Day under the theme Closing the Care Gap. World Cancer Day is celebrated with the aim of creating awareness centered around identifying and addressing the barriers that exist in people accessing quality cancer care. Consultant oncologist at the Millennium Heights Medical Complex, Dr. Owen Gabriel, placed great emphasis on ensuring there is access to quality cancer care, such as screening, early detection, and treatment for everyone.
From the standpoint of governments and NGOs, it is important that we have those facilities and services available, like mammograms that are available to the population at risk, free of charge, as well as the availability of pap smears, prostate examinations, and so on, to populations at risk. So we need to have that within our primary healthcare setting, as well as our secondary healthcare setting, so that those patients who are diagnosed early can be treated adequately.
President of Faces of Cancer St. Lucia, Dorothy Phillip, highlighted what her future hopes are for closing the cancer care gap in St. Lucia.
In the UK, every cancer person that's diagnosed, they do gene sequencing. They could match up the person's genes with all and whichever has the higher percentage, that is what is being used for that person. But in St. Lucia, we're far off. We are not nowhere close to be doing gene sequencing right here as yet. So that is one of the very important things I would like to see brought into St. Lucia in order to close the care gap. And I would like it to be for everybody, not just privately, but in the public sector also.
Dr. Owen Gabriel also called on individuals to play their part and to do the necessary screening for cancer.
I think it is important that every individual becomes cognizant of whatever risk factors they may have as individuals, as part of a family, and as part of the environment within which they work. For example, we know that prostate cancer can be inherited from father to son and so on within the family. We know that persons who work in high-risk areas, if you're exposed to pesticides, say like farmers, if you're exposed to certain environmental risk factors, radiations and so on, which could lead to the development of cancer. So individuals have to make that conscious effort to get checked annually, at least, get screened, so that we can get early detection and then have a good outcome once we detect that cancer.
The Ministry of Health proudly supports the World Cancer Day campaign of addressing inequalities in cancer care and reducing the impact of cancer. Reporting from the Communications Unit of the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs, I am Funnel Neptune.
Thank you, Fernand Neptune, for that report. And so cancer continues to be that disease that we just can't seem to be able to get a grip on, if you will, just to put it quite loosely. And because it's so highly complex as well, and I've said this before, that you can have two people in a room, two people who've been diagnosed with cancer, and the same type of cancer, and yet their treatment would be different. Even the way in which the cancer itself is going, developing, affecting the body would also be different. There's so many different factors that go into cancer care, and so forth. And so, Homer, tomorrow, Wednesday morning, will be quite special because due to the sitting of the Senate on Friday, we were not able to commemorate with the rest of the world right here on NTN. So the Ministry of Health, collaborating with us, will be having two special activities. On Wednesday morning, we'll be speaking with some cancer survivors, which is going to be quite personal and informative and so forth. And then on Thursday, we will be having a sort of panel discussion. I don't want to call it a panel discussion because that makes it so formal and so impersonal, but there will be a discussion forum where we can really get into the nitty-gritty of cancer care, the diagnosis, what happens, and so forth. I think we last year, Homer, we had broken it down. There was an overall panel, and then we broke it down. We had Ms. Fadia Campbell come through, the nutritionist, Father Setut on the psychological end, and then we had spoken with oncologist Dr. Owen Gabriel. So we're looking forward to another similar type conversation, but really looking at cancer as a subject as a whole. So it should be some interesting discussion.
I agree, Lisa, and one of the important points that you made, and again with the events coming up, you see that the nature of the diseases, that information is really important, and not only that, hearing the stories of survivors, I think, is also extremely important, because somebody receiving a diagnosis, a cancer diagnosis, I can imagine that the stereotypes and the rumors and the myths is what probably comes to your head, but the education empowers you to be able to go through your journey, I guess, better informed and better equipped. And so I think that is really important, that these discussions are held, and that people actually take in the information, they educate themselves on it, because everybody knows somebody, and I think that's the way that you have to look at it.
Yeah, at this point, absolutely. Every family, just about every family in St. Lucia is touched by cancer in one way or another. And so the information is critical, being able to understand the information, which is why I believe too that it's not just talking about what the risk factors are, but once you have gotten a cancer diagnosis, how do you even begin to understand what that means within itself? Because it's not as straightforward as they saying, okay, that you have cancer, because then you now need to break down, okay, the size of the tumor, what the grade of the tumor, what type is it as well, is it highly aggressive, there are just, as I said, there's so many factors, and as someone who's gone through it personally as well, I can tell you that the psychological and the emotional impact it can have on an individual and the family by extension. It is the various layers to cancer, indeed very, very complex. So we want to play our part here at the GIS NTN to be able to help all of us navigate through this. Too many lives lost in 2020. We're looking at upwards of 1,200. That's more than what COVID-19 within itself, the devastation of COVID-19, can't compare to those numbers. I'm also thinking, and perhaps this is something I'll bring up as well in our conversations with the doctor. When I look at it, I say, well, COVID-19 on board, when I got my cancer diagnosis, and it was in 2020. So going through, and I thought back, going through that period, how difficult it was, being able to, and COVID-19 was so new, nobody knew exactly what it was.
Sure.
And so being able to access care was also a very difficult thing, accessing treatment. So sometimes you'd have something scheduled, but then there's a pullback because of so many other things going on. And I'm wondering too, if that did not affect the numbers and fatalities, how did that impact?
That's a good point.
Is it really a situation where people completely succumbed, or were there other factors that played into that as well? Because I can tell you that a number of times my chemotherapy sessions were scheduled, and perhaps getting to the hospital, and then I'll be told right there and then, no, I'm sorry, we can't have chemo, whether it be that the drugs are not available or something, COVID-19 has impacted something, and just having to go home and not being able to get treatment on that day, not until probably the following week or 2 weeks later or something. So all of that, I'm thinking, certainly would have perhaps impacted on other situations. I'm not saying conclusively, but just from my own personal experience, I'm wondering how much of an impact did COVID-19 have on those numbers that we're seeing in terms of fatalities in 2020. So it's something really for discussion. And I think too that COVID-19 as a pandemic, we've had other pandemics. We've come close to, the Ministry of Health has drawn up so many plans and so forth for pandemics. But COVID-19 was so peculiar in so many ways. And I'm believing that COVID-19 is now the sort of litmus test on how we perhaps will be rethinking a number of things, yes, when we strategies and management and mitigation plans dealing in situations of crises. So we'll see how that pans out, but looking forward to that conversation.
Indeed, me too.
Yes. Beginning Wednesday morning, we'll have that discussion. So Roger is frantically waving that we are out of time, Homer. I want to thank St. Lucia, as always, for being with us. We know that sometimes it can get pretty personal and heavy here, but that's okay. We're all in the same boat, as they would say.
Indeed, Lisa. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Tuesday, it is the 8th of February, 2022. Until next time, Lisa and Huma signing out.